Admiral Reed stood motionless before the massive viewing screen aboard the Imperial flagship Dominion. His gray eyes reflected the blue-green marble of Earth floating in the darkness of space. Behind him, crew members worked quietly at their stations, their fingers dancing across holographic displays as they analyzed data from their long-range scanners. "Fascinating," he muttered, stroking his short white beard. "Another water world. They always prove the most interesting." The bridge of the Dominion was silent except for the soft hum of machinery and occasional beeping of sensors. The ship hung at the edge of the solar system, far beyond the reach of Earth's primitive detection systems, or at least what they assumed were primitive detection systems. "Report," Reed commanded, turning to face his science officer. Officer Mark stepped forward, his crisp black uniform bearing the golden insignia of the Empire's scientific division. "Sir, initial scans confirm it's a Class 3 civilization. They've achieved basic spaceflight, but haven't expanded beyond their moon. Their technology appears to be based primarily on fossil fuels and basic nuclear fission." Reed nodded, but something in the data caught his eye. "These energy readings, they don't match up with a Class 3 civilization." "We've noticed that too, sir," Mark replied, bringing up a detailed holographic display. "There are unusual power signatures coming from various points around the planet, particularly in their oceans, but they're intermittent, almost as if they're being masked." Reed finished, his eyes narrowing. "Show me their global communication networks." The holographic display shifted, showing a web of satellites orbiting the planet. Simple technology, by Imperial standards. Their ships could easily disable the entire network in seconds, yet those strange energy readings troubled him. Reed had conquered 17 worlds for the Empire. Each conquest had added to the Empire's glory, and each had followed a predictable pattern. But something about Earth felt different. The pieces didn't quite fit together. "Launch the probes," he ordered. "I want detailed scans of every continent, every ocean. Pay special attention to those energy signatures, and maintain our position beyond their detection range." "Sir," a young lieutenant called out, "what about the Imperial Council? They're expecting us to begin standard conquest procedures within the next solar cycle." Reed turned back to the viewing screen, watching Earth rotate slowly in the darkness. "The Council can wait. Something isn't right here, and I intend to find out what it is before we commit our forces." Across the bridge, dozens of stealth probes launched silently into space, their advanced cloaking technology making them invisible to conventional detection methods. They spread out like a swarm of invisible insects, heading toward the unsuspecting planet. "Sir," Mark spoke up again, his voice hesitant. "There's one more thing. Our cultural analysis shows they're remarkably unified for a Class 3 civilization. Despite having multiple nations and governments, they have a functioning global council called the United Nations. They have numerous worldwide cooperative efforts, particularly in space exploration and scientific research." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Unusual. Most species at this stage are still fighting among themselves. Makes them easier to conquer when they're divided." He pulled up the cultural data on his personal display, scrolling through centuries of human history. "They do fight, though. Constantly. But they also unite, rebuild, cooperate. Interesting." The first probe data began streaming in, and Reed's expression grew more troubled. The energy signatures were stronger than initially detected, and they seemed to pulse in patterns that suggested artificial control. But the source remained elusive. "Continue monitoring," he commanded. "I want hourly reports on those energy signatures, and prepare a detailed analysis of their military capabilities, focusing on their nuclear arsenals and space defense systems." As his crew carried out their orders, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The Empire had conquered countless worlds, but Earth was different. And in his experience, different usually meant dangerous. Sometimes, he muttered to himself, the most dangerous prey is the one that appears most harmless. The probes continued their silent journey toward Earth, unaware that deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility unknown to all but a select few, the first alerts were already beginning to flash. 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Thomas Miller stared at the bank of monitors lining the curved wall of Deep Watch Command. The facility hummed with the steady pulse of the quantum generators that powered it, a sound that had become as familiar to him as his own heartbeat over the past 15 years. "Sir," called out his assistant Robert from the main monitoring station, "we're picking up multiple objects entering the solar system. They're using some kind of cloaking technology, but the quantum sensors are tracking them." Miller walked over, his footsteps echoing on the metal floor. The Deep Watch facility was humanity's best-kept secret, built in the aftermath of the 1947 crash. What the public knew as Roswell had been humanity's wake-up call, a glimpse of what waited for them in the stars. "Show me the tracking data," Miller said, leaning over Robert's shoulder to study the holographic display. Red dots appeared, showing the paths of the unknown objects moving through their solar system. They're being methodical. Search pattern Alpha 7. Whoever they are, they're looking for something. The command center buzzed with quiet activity as dozens of technicians monitored their stations. Each was hand-picked, representing every major nation on Earth. Here, 3 miles under the ocean, old rivalries didn't matter. They were all just humans, working together to protect their home. Miller pressed his palm against a biometric scanner, bringing up the facility's primary systems. The quantum defense grid, reverse-engineered from the crashed alien ship, remained in standby mode. They had never powered it up to full capacity, fearing it might be detected. Now, he wondered if that time was approaching. "Dr. Miller," a voice called from across the room. "The AI analysis of their search pattern is complete. They're definitely military. The movement matches known naval search strategies. They're looking for defensive installations." Miller smiled slightly. They wouldn't find any. At least, not the ones they were looking for. Earth's true defenses were hidden in plain sight. The quantum grid nodes were disguised as deep-sea research stations, weather monitoring posts, and communications arrays. Even most world leaders didn't know their true purpose. "What about the main vessel?" Miller asked, pulling up another display. "Still holding position beyond Neptune's orbit. It's big, sir. Our sensors estimate it's about the size of Manhattan." Miller nodded, remembering the briefings from the original Roswell studies. "Begin power-up sequences for all Pacific grid nodes. Alert the other facilities to stand by. And get me a secure line to the Security Council." As his staff carried out their orders, Miller walked to the center of the command room, where a large holographic globe hovered in the air. Dotted across its surface were hundreds of tiny blue lights, the quantum grid nodes. For decades, they had maintained this shield in secret, knowing that somewhere out there, someone would eventually find Earth. The quantum technology they had recovered had been a gift beyond price. It had taken 30 years just to understand its basic principles, and another 20 to begin replicating it. But they had done it, building their defenses in secret, while the world went about its business, unaware of the sword hanging over their heads. "Sir," Robert called out, "Security Council is standing by, and we're getting reports of similar probes approaching other grid installations. They're being tracked but haven't detected our facilities yet." Miller straightened his jacket and walked to the communications room. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's long preparation had been enough. They had one advantage. Whoever these visitors were, they clearly expected to find a primitive civilization. They had no idea they were walking into a trap 75 years in the making. "Let them look," Miller said quietly. "Let them think they know what they're dealing with. When the time comes, they'll learn that humanity hasn't survived this long by being helpless." On his desk sat a small piece of twisted metal, a fragment from the Roswell crash, mounted on a simple stand. It served as a daily reminder of the day humanity learned they weren't alone, and more importantly, of the day they decided to be ready for what would eventually come. Captain Lisa Anders stood at the helm of the Imperial stealth vessel, Shadowhawk, watching Earth grow larger in her viewing screen. Her ship was the pride of the Empire's reconnaissance fleet, featuring the most advanced cloaking technology in the galaxy. Even the mighty warships of the Empire's rivals couldn't detect it. Against a primitive Class 3 world, it was like being invisible. "Status report," she commanded, her voice firm but quiet. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements precise and controlled. "All systems nominal, Captain," her first officer replied. "Our cloaking field is at maximum efficiency. Earth's primitive radar systems show no sign of detecting us." Anders nodded, but something made her uneasy. 20 years of reconnaissance missions had taught her to trust her instincts, run a full-spectrum analysis of their orbital defense systems. The scan revealed exactly what they expected: a scattered network of primitive satellites, a small space station, and various pieces of space debris. Nothing that could threaten an Imperial vessel. Yet Anders couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "Ma'am," called out her sensor operator, "I'm detecting some unusual radiation patterns in their upper atmosphere. It could be interfering with our deep scans." Anders moved to the sensor station, studying the readings carefully. The patterns were subtle, almost natural-looking, but there was a regularity to them that suggested artificial origin. "Expand the scan range. Let's see if these patterns repeat." As the Shadowhawk moved closer to Earth, more data poured in. Their primitive satellites were arranged in predictable patterns, their space station followed a standard orbit, and their handful of spacecraft used basic chemical propulsion. Everything marked them as an easy target for conquest. "Begin mapping their military installations," Anders ordered. "Focus on nuclear launch sites, air defense networks, and naval bases." The ship's AI compiled the data, creating a detailed map of Earth's apparent defensive capabilities. Anders studied it carefully, comparing it to previous conquest reports. The humans had impressive numbers of weapons and soldiers, but nothing that could stand against Imperial technology. "Captain," her communications officer interrupted, "we're picking up some interesting transmissions. Their global information network, they call it the Internet, contains numerous fictional stories about alien invasions. Many of them describe advanced defensive systems hidden by world governments." Anders laughed softly. Typical primitive paranoia. They imagine threats from the stars while being completely helpless against them. She paused, considering. Though it's interesting that they think about such things. The Shadowhawk continued its silent orbit, gathering data. They observed the humans going about their daily lives, unaware of the invisible ship watching them. Cities lit up and darkened with the rotation of their planet. Ships crossed their oceans. Aircraft crisscrossed their skies. "Prepare the final report for Admiral Reed," Anders ordered. "Recommend immediate commencement of conquest operations. Their technology level poses no threat to our forces, and their resource wealth makes them an ideal target." As her crew compiled the report, Anders watched a sunrise over Earth's Pacific Ocean. The light caught the atmosphere in a way that made it shimmer strangely. For a moment, she thought she saw a pattern in the shimmer, like a vast network of energy. But when she looked again, it was gone. "Just atmospheric distortion," she muttered to herself. The Shadowhawk's engines powered up silently, preparing to return to the main fleet. Anders had completed hundreds of reconnaissance missions, and this one seemed routine. Earth was exactly what it appeared to be, a primitive world ripe for conquest. But as they turned away from the blue planet, her sensor operator spoke up one last time. "Captain, those radiation patterns we detected, they're changing. It's subtle, but they seem to be responding to our movement." Anders dismissed the concern. After all, what could a primitive Class 3 civilization possibly hide from the Empire's best stealth technology? As the Shadowhawk accelerated away from Earth, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Miller smiled as he watched the alien ship's energy signature fade. The test of their sensor mask had worked perfectly. The Empire had seen exactly what humanity wanted them to see. General James Walker stood in the center of the UN Security Council's underground bunker, 200 feet beneath New York City, the room hummed with tension as world leaders and military commanders watched the massive display screen tracking the approaching Imperial fleet. "They'll be within Jupiter's orbit in less than 6 hours," Walker announced, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "The time has come to make our decision." The room fell silent. For 75 years, they had prepared for this moment. Now that it was here, the weight of history pressed down on everyone present. "Show us the fleet composition again," the Chinese representative requested, leaning forward in his chair. Walker nodded to his technical officer, and the display shifted to show detailed scans of the Imperial ships. 37 warships, including their flagship. "Our quantum sensors indicate their weapons are primarily energy-based, with yields far exceeding our conventional nuclear arsenals." The Russian president spoke next, her voice clear through the translator. "And our defense grid, is it ready?" "Dr. Miller," Walker called out, "please brief the council on deep watch status." Miller stepped forward from his position near the wall, his tablet displaying real-time data from all deep watch facilities. "The quantum grid is at full power for the first time in its history. All 437 nodes are synchronized and responding. The fusion reactors are operating at peak efficiency." He tapped his tablet, and the display changed to show a complex network of energy lines crisscrossing the globe. "We've maintained minimal power for decades to avoid detection. But now, with full activation, the shield will be visible even to primitive sensors. There's no going back once we turn it on." The U.S. president stood up, looking around the room. "We've had 3 generations to prepare for this moment. Our grandparents learned we weren't alone. Our parents built our defenses. And now we must decide whether to use them." Walker brought up another display, showing the stealth ship that had scouted Earth days earlier. "They think we're helpless. Their reconnaissance missed everything we wanted them to miss. We have one chance to show them exactly how wrong they are." The British Prime Minister cleared his throat. "And if the shield fails?" "Then we fight," Walker replied simply. "But it won't fail. We've tested every component. We've run every simulation. We're ready." The council members looked at each other, decades of preparation coming down to this moment. One by one, they nodded their agreement. "Begin the activation sequence," the UN Secretary-General commanded. Walker moved to the central console, placing his palm on the biometric scanner. Around the world, in similar bunkers and command centers, other military leaders did the same. The quantum grid required simultaneous authorization from multiple nations, a failsafe built into its very design. "Deep watch facilities report ready," Miller announced. "Fusion reactors at maximum output. Quantum harmonics synchronized. Shield geometries calculated and locked." Walker took a deep breath. "Commencing full power up in 3, 2, 1. Around the world, hidden power plants roared to life. In the oceans, disguised as research stations, quantum grid nodes began to pulse with energy. In remote mountain ranges, buried beneath ice sheets and hidden in dense jungles, humanity's secret weapons awakened. The room's main display showed a real-time view of Earth from a military satellite. As they watched, a faint shimmer began to appear in the atmosphere. It started as a barely visible distortion, then grew stronger, like ripples spreading across the surface of a pond. "Shield integrity at 100%, Miller reported. "All systems nominal. The quantum barrier is forming exactly as designed." Walker watched as the shield became fully visible, a subtle but unmistakable sphere of energy surrounding the entire planet. In orbit, confused satellite operators around the world began reporting the strange phenomenon. "Now we wait," Walker said quietly. "Let's see how the Empire reacts when they realize their primitive target has teeth." On the main screen, the Imperial fleet continued its approach, unaware that they were about to receive the surprise of their lives. Humanity's trap was set, and 75 years of patience was about to pay off. Admiral Reed stood frozen on the bridge of the Dominion, staring at the impossible sight before him. Where Earth's atmosphere had been clear just moments ago, Now a shimmering barrier of energy encased the entire planet. The shield's surface rippled with patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. "Status report," he demanded, his voice sharp with disbelief. "Sir, we're detecting quantum energy signatures unlike anything in our database," his science officer reported, fingers flying across his console. "The barrier surrounds the entire planet in a perfect sphere. Our initial weapons analysis suggests it's more advanced than our own shield technology." Reed's mind raced. This couldn't be possible. Their reconnaissance had shown a primitive civilization barely capable of reaching their own moon. Yet the energy readings from that shield spoke of technology centuries beyond what Earth should possess. "Sir," the communications officer called out suddenly, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all Imperial frequencies simultaneously." Reed straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The bridge's main screen came to life, showing a simple Earth military emblem, a blue planet surrounded by stars. A calm, authoritative voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect Imperial standard. "To the approaching Imperial fleet, this is General James Walker of Earth's Unified Defense Command. You are now within range of our defensive systems. Your stealth technology is impressive, but we've been tracking you since you entered our solar system." Reed felt his crew's eyes on him as the message continued. "We have watched your empire expand across the galaxy. We have studied your conquests, your technology, and your tactics. We chose to remain hidden, preparing for the day you would eventually find us. That day has come." The message paused for a moment, and Reed noticed his hands were clenched into fists. "This is humanity's only warning. Earth is protected. Any hostile action will be met with immediate and devastating consequences. We have chosen peace, but we are prepared for war. The choice is yours." As the message ended, Reed's tactical officer spoke up urgently. "Admiral, we're detecting more energy signatures. They're appearing throughout the solar system." On the tactical display, dozens of red dots began appearing, hidden defense platforms around every planet, and major moon in the solar system were powering up. Each one radiated the same advanced quantum energy as Earth's shield. "Impossible," Reed whispered. "They've fortified the entire system." "Sir," his science officer added, "these platforms, they're not new construction. Based on the mineral accumulation on their hulls, they've been in place for decades. They let us think we were scanning an empty system." The bridge erupted in activity as more data poured in. The humans hadn't just built a planetary shield. They had created an interlocking network of defensive positions throughout their entire solar system. Every probe the Empire had sent, every scan they had made, had seen only what the humans wanted them to see. "Admiral," his first officer spoke quietly beside him, "our weapons analysis is complete. Their technology, it's based on quantum manipulation principles we've only theorized about. We're not even sure our shields could withstand a direct hit from their defense platforms." Reed stared at the shimmering barrier around Earth, his mind racing through the implications. In all his years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. A civilization that had hidden its true capabilities so completely, waiting patiently for decades until the moment was right to reveal their power. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he ordered finally. "Priority 1. Message begins. First contact protocols with Earth must be significantly revised. We are not dealing with a primitive civilization. We are dealing with something far more dangerous, a civilization that has outfought us before we even knew they existed." As the message was sent, Reed watched the quantum shield ripple with barely contained power. For the first time in his career, he felt something he had never experienced before in a conquest mission: respect mixed with fear. Captain Mike Turner of the destroyer Imperial Storm gripped his command chair tightly. Admiral Reed's orders had been clear: fire a single shot at Earth's shield. Test its strength. Turner didn't like it, but orders were orders. "Weapons charged to 20% power," his gunner reported. Targeting coordinates locked. In the UN bunker beneath New York, General Walker watched the Imperial destroyer move into position. Dr. Miller stood beside him, monitoring the shield's power levels. "They're going to test us," Walker said quietly. Miller nodded. "The shield is ready. Should we show them everything?" Walker thought for a moment. "No, just enough to make our point." Back on the Imperial storm, Turner gave the command. "Fire." A bright beam of energy lanced out from the destroyer's main cannon, striking Earth's shield. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the point of impact began to glow. Energy absorption at optimal levels, Miller reported in the bunker. "Shield is converting the attack power." The shield's surface rippled like water where the beam had hit. Then, faster than anyone could blink, it redirected the energy straight back at the Imperial destroyer. But it wasn't just reflecting the shot, it was amplifying it. "By the stars," Turner whispered as he saw the massive beam of energy racing toward his ship. "Evasive maneuver." He never finished the order. The redirected beam struck the Imperial storm with surgical precision, cutting through its shields like they weren't even there. In an instant, the mighty destroyer split in half, its reactor core going dark before it could even explode. On the Dominion's bridge, Admiral Reed watched in stunned silence as one of his best ships was disabled with frightening ease. The humans hadn't destroyed it. They had simply cut it in half, deliberately avoiding the reactor to prevent an explosion. "Analysis," he demanded. "Sir," his science officer responded, voice shaking. "They didn't just reflect our energy weapon. They absorbed it, amplified it, and redirected it with perfect accuracy. The beam cut through our most advanced shields as if they were paper." Another transmission from Earth cut through their communications. General Walker's voice was calm but firm. "That was a demonstration using only one of our defense platforms, at minimal power. We have thousands more, all targeting your fleet. The next demonstration, if needed, will not be so gentle." In the bunker, Miller pulled up a new display. "Sir, look at these readings. Their flagship's sensors are going crazy trying to analyze what we just did. Should we show them the rest?" Walker smiled slightly. "Activate the Jupiter platforms. Let's give them something else to think about." Throughout the solar system, hidden defense platforms around Jupiter hummed to life. Quantum energy began crackling between them, forming a web of power that could trap and destroy any ship that tried to pass through. On the Dominion, alarms began blaring. "Admiral," the tactical officer shouted, "we're detecting massive energy buildups around Jupiter. They're creating some kind of interconnected defense grid. Our exit route is being cut off." Reed stared at the tactical display, watching as humanity demonstrated yet another layer of their defensive capabilities. They hadn't just protected their planet. They had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered, his voice heavy with realization. "Send word to all ships. No aggressive actions." He watched as the destroyed Imperial storm's two halves drifted in space, a testament to humanity's power and precision. They could have easily vaporized the ship and its crew. Instead, they had chosen to demonstrate their superiority while preserving life. "Send another message to Imperial Command," Reed commanded. Message begins. "Earth defense capabilities far exceed initial estimates. Recommend immediate diplomatic approach. This is not a civilization we want as an enemy." The quantum shield around Earth continued to shimmer, its very existence a reminder that humanity had outplayed the mighty empire at every turn. The neutral space station, Unity Point, floated at the halfway point between Earth's defense grid and the Imperial fleet. Inside its main conference room, Admiral Reed sat across from General Walker and Dr. Miller, still trying to process everything he had learned in the past hour. "So you've known about us for 75 years, Reed said, shaking his head in amazement. "Ever since that ship crashed in. What did you call it?" "Roswell," Miller replied, placing a small piece of twisted metal on the table between them. "This is from that crash. It taught us we weren't alone, and more importantly, that we needed to be ready. Walker spread out a series of holographic images showing Earth's defensive network. We recovered quantum technology from that crash. Technology your empire was still developing. It gave us a head start, and we made the most of it. Reed picked up the metal fragment, turning it over in his hands. And you kept it all hidden. Built your defenses in secret. United your entire world without anyone knowing the real reason why. We knew someone would come eventually, Walker explained. Whether it was your empire or another spacefaring civilization, we needed time to prepare, to build our defenses, to advance our technology. So we hid everything important and showed the galaxy exactly what they expected to see. A primitive world still taking its first steps into space. A holographic display showed the Imperial Storm, now being repaired by Earth's engineering teams. The cut was so clean that rejoining the pieces would make the ship as good as new. Your precision was impressive, Reed admitted. You could have destroyed that ship, killed its crew. Instead, you disabled it without a single casualty. Miller nodded. We've had decades to perfect our control over quantum energy. We didn't want to just show power. We wanted to show restraint. Civilization isn't measured by the ability to destroy, but by the wisdom to know when not to. Reed straightened in his chair. The Empire has never encountered anything like this. A civilization that could hide its true capabilities so completely, prepare so thoroughly, and then show such control when revealing itself. We're not interested in conquest or expansion, Walker said firmly. We only want to protect our home and live in peace. But we will not be subjugated. Not by your empire, not by anyone. Reed smiled for the first time since the meeting began. I don't think subjugation is on the table anymore. The Empire needs allies more than it needs conquered worlds, especially allies with your level of technology and foresight. He stood up, making his decision. I'll recommend to the Imperial Council that we establish full diplomatic relations with Earth. As equals, your world has earned that right. And more. Walker and Miller stood as well. We would welcome peaceful relations with the Empire, Walker replied. We have much we could learn from each other. Indeed, Reed agreed. Though I think we have more to learn from you than you from us. Your patience, your planning, your unity. These are things the Empire could study. As they prepared to leave the conference room, Reed turned back. One last question. Why reveal yourselves now? You could have remained hidden longer, built even more defenses. Miller smiled. Because we were ready. Not just technologically, but as a species. We've united our world, ended our major conflicts, learned to work together. We're ready to join the galactic community. As equals, not subjects. Walker added, and we wanted to send a message to the galaxy. Humanity comes in peace, but we come prepared. Reed nodded slowly. A message received, General, loud and clear. As they left the station, Earth's quantum shield shimmered in the distance, no longer hiding its power. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as a civilization that had earned its place among the stars through patience, preparation, and wisdom.